So we have our animation pretty much done, and we're going to go ahead and try some lighting. Every time we render, we have to calculate lighting from the scene. So a lot of the stuff that you set up in lighting will affect how your render looks. It's not just the animation, it's not just the textures and the materials, it's also a lot about lighting. So we want to make sure that we have a good understanding of lighting, as well as a way to set up a simple lighting technique to help you get through the Minecraft scenes and stuff that you want to do. These are pretty simplistic models. They don't need anything crazy with the lighting, so as long as you get something good and decent that looks professional, we are good to go. So let's go ahead and go into the basics first. I'm going to go ahead and render this out as is without any lighting at all. I think we might have one sun lamp in there, maybe, but we do have ambient occlusion turned on. So you'll see that this is a very important feature of ambient occlusion. It makes everything pretty much lit up like perfectly. So it's actually quite handy. In fact, we'll probably use it a little bit here and there. It's not a good idea to use it 100% because it will probably look a little bit too fake. So we'll just wait for this to be done, and then I'll see you guys when that happens. And the render is finished. As you can see, it looks pretty good already, to be honest. I do think that the ambient occlusion is a little bit too high, but you can mess around with the settings yourself. It's right over here in the world settings. Down below it says ambient occlusion. You can just check that on and off. I recommend checking it on, especially for outdoor scenes, but Minecraft works great with ambient occlusion. But I would recommend turning it down to like 0.5 or something. I think that's a little bit more reasonable. And then making your scene brighter based on the actual sun lamp or lamps in your scene. So if you have an outdoor scene, sun lamps work really great because there's no roof or anything like that. But if you don't have an outdoor scene, then you're going to want to use a little bit different lamps. And you do have those lamps at your disposal as well. There's, of course, point lamps, which is the most common one. I'm going to go ahead and add a few here. Just hit Shift A, lamp, point lamp. There you go. So this is a simple lamp. This is in cycles. You can actually just go here, change the brightness of it. You know, make it 1000, right? Hit Shift Z, zoom up on this guy just to get the idea. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. I mean, that's very, very bright. A little bit too bright, of course. I'm going to bring this down back to like 100-ish and see what that looks like because I'm curious what we can do with this lamp. I think we could probably add a little bit of light source here just to have a bit of a glow from the sword maybe or something like that. But anyway, just a quick tip about lighting. If you guys want to learn about the 3-point lighting system, I'd recommend going to the Blender Fundamentals series on the Blender Foundation channel. It's a tutorial series that I made as well for the Blender Foundation channel. And it has a really good overview of how the 3-point lighting system works. I recommend it if you want to learn how to just do any kind of lighting scenes in general, so it will apply very well to this as well. But I did want to talk about the skybox. So the skybox for Blender Render versus Cycles is very different. So I'm going to go over the two different techniques of doing the skybox because for the Blender Render version, it is more or less sort of just a texture, whereas for Cycles, you can actually use it to cast light into your scene. So we're going to go into the Cycles one first because we're already in Cycles and we're set up for Cycles in this file. But we're going to go into the Blender Render right afterwards. So for the Cycles one, all you have to do is go to the world settings again and under surface right here, under where it says background, you want to go to the color and then instead of gray, which you can also set this to whatever you want, but we're going to go ahead and give it an image texture. So I want to click the square right next to the color, and then we're going to go ahead and click environment texture. So this will give us an environment texture node that you can input a HDRI or a skybox file. I recommend looking up HDRIs online. There's a bunch of them already available for free. If you want to know what they're supposed to look like, they basically look like this. It's sort of a sky dome looking thing stretched out across a single rectangle that will wrap around a scene. So this is the sky dome HDRI looking thing. Look for something like this and it should work just fine. You'll then be able to apply this to your world by opening it up in Blender through the environment texture node. And I'm going to go ahead and say everything is good here, I think. I'm going to go ahead and click N right now just to preview this. And under display, I'm going to turn on or check world background. That should give me, there we go, a nice preview of what the sky will look like as we zoom out here. And that looks pretty good. I mean, we do have a skybox here, which is fantastic. So that is that. The texture works great, but not only is it a texture, it also casts light on your scene. So you can actually look at the strength setting here for the environment texture, as that is basically an emission value. You can tell it to emit light and it will affect your scene. So that's pretty awesome in my opinion. I think it's a great way to light up a scene and add some extra shadows and nuance. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at strength of 1, and we're going to hit Shift Z just to see what things look like. It will look pretty good already because the ambient occlusion is pretty strong. I can actually turn off the ambient occlusion if I want to, just to get an idea of how much is being affected by the sky and how much is being affected by the sun lamp and stuff like that. So that's pretty good, but I'm going to go ahead and hit a strength of 0 to see if that makes a big difference. And as you can see, there's no more sky, and even the environment seems a little darker. So you can actually bring that up to 1, up to whatever you want. Hell, you can go up all the way up to 10 if you want to. As you can see, the sky is a lot brighter. It's almost white now, so that's pretty cool. But we're going to bring that down to 1. I think that's pretty good. Turn the ambient occlusion back on, and that looks pretty good to me. So those are the tricks I recommend for lighting, as well as the 3-point lighting system, which I recommend checking that out on the Blender Foundations channel, which again, it's free. I mean, it's a free video, so go check that out. It's linked down below. But on top of that, we're going to go ahead and start learning a little bit about rendering and the actual official rendering process. Here we're doing some preview renders and some real-time renders just to test out what it's eventually going to look like. So now we get to get into exactly how to make it look like it's eventually going to look like the final version. So I'll see you guys in the next video.